I'm Roxane Webster.
And I'm Keith Alba.
We are the partners and owners of My Home Team at Keller Williams.
Yep, and you turned into another episode of what we call the Honest Hour.
The Honest Hour, the Honest Hour. And this is a, please, before we get started, let's tell the Google gods how much, and the Facebook and the YouTube, there we go. All of those gods, the algorithm gods. If you can hit subscribe, like, share, comment. You know, we're having a series of conversations about what we do.
Yeah, it's definitely been thrust into the limelight lately, right? With all these settlement talks and the lawsuits and those sorts of things. And I think there is a big misunderstanding or misconception out there in the general public. You know, we drop a sign in the yard, we hang a lockbox, and we sit back and do nothing and wait until closing to collect
and then get a
checks.
nice big paycheck.
Right, yeah.
So I wanted to just talk a little bit today about that series of actions that happen. So we've listed your home. So clearly we have impressed you enough for you to hire us. And then we get an offer or offers. And
Ideally offers, right? Yeah.
That's right. Sometimes multiple offers on your property. And then what you hear is we put a sign in the yard, we're telling you how many showings we had, and then we've got an offer on the table, and these are the terms of it. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes in between that.
Absolutely. Not all offers are created equal.
That's right.
Right? And a lot of people will just focus simply on the purchase price, which is important. It definitely is a factor that's there. But our contract is so long, and so many legal provisions, and so many other terms that are incorporated in, and then binding the parties to those terms once it's fully executed. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
So there is so much more to that than to assessing offers than just which is the highest price. So let's talk a little bit. You know, I kind of break it up into the due diligence before I even call you the seller. With a recommendation if we've got multiple offers, or to explain the current offer, because I want to make sure that the first thing I look at is the quality of the offer itself, the second thing I look at is the quality of the financing, and the third thing I look at is the terms. So quality of the offer, the way it's written, right?
Yeah, it can be very telling, right?
Keith is the employing broker for our office. Tell us some of the garbage you see.
Oh, it's agents moving quickly, you know, missing some of the sections of the contract, leaving it blank. But the problem is that has massive ramifications on the contract as well. There's a section of the contract that talks about the applicability of terms. So if you put NA deleted or leave a deadline blank in the dates and deadlines section of the contract, the whole provision of that contract is thereby deleted.
The whole provision.
It's gone.
The whole right, the whole contingency.
The words still will be there, but they're just not applicable anymore to the actual contract, right? And that can have massive ramifications. So appraisal, for instance. Agents moving too fast, they miss an appraisal deadline. Buyer does not have a right to get the appraisal. I mean, they can still order one.
Or
but
the
if it comes
seller
in low,
doesn't have the right to terminate the contract if the appraiser requests that they paint the whole house, right? Massive ramifications for both the buyer and the seller by just leaving that one form line blank.
Yeah, so it's huge. And it's Colorado, there was a case, it's called the Conway-Bogue case, and essentially what it did is it granted us as real estate professionals in the state of Colorado to practice law on a limited basis.
We're limited practice of law, and we're rushing through these contracts. Shut up.
Yeah, these contracts are binding, legally binding. As a seller, you sign it and then you don't perform, you can be sued for specific performance, which means they're going to sue you to force you to sell to them based off of the terms of the contract. And they also have the option to sue for damages, right? So the temporary housing while they're going through this lawsuit, any food expenses that they have to do.
The booze expenses.
Yeah, attorneys can get very creative with what they throw into that damages. And so, yeah, not only you're hooked for the sales price, but then also the damages that they get thrown on top of it. And oh yeah, by the way, there is a provision of the contract, we call it the shifting provision. It says if it goes through, the courts should award the prevailing party the other party's court costs and attorney's fees. So that is a massive amount of money
It's bad.
that is
mojo.
exposed to the seller just because an agent was too quick to actually sit down and look at it or write a contract competently.
Right.
It's terrifying.
So I received 3 offers, and the first thing I do is I slow down and I say, what is the quality of how this offer was written? Because that tells me right off the bat, one of a few things. It tells me it tells me one thing. It tells me the competence and the quality of an agent.
Right.
I don't care how busy you are. If you are an agent engaged in a limited practice of law and you are too busy to proofread your work, I hear McDonald's is hiring. Shut up. Just shut up.
Right? I mean, it is terrifying somehow. That's how some of these people.
So that's the first thing,
right?
We review that contract for the quality itself, right? Because that agent and the quality of that contract, it's going to be very telling. And when we look at something, the entire life form of a contract, problems that may arise, issues over inspections, the quality of the agent on the other side of the transaction is a major factor in whether or not this thing is going to get to the closing table.
Absolutely.
Then financing, right? Not all lenders are created equal, right? It takes almost nothing. I think it takes, I don't know this. I was about to say, what level of education it takes to become a lender, but it's not much, right? Anybody can go hang their broker's license. And like real estate, there are lenders who've been in the business for a long time. There are lenders who haven't been in the business. So when some agent calls up who's written an ill-drafted contract and they say, oh yeah, our buyer is pre-qualified or pre-approved, I have no idea what that means. So we pick up the phone with these lenders and we ask them a series of questions that have 2 purposes. The first purpose is to find out what the quality of that borrower is, and the second one is to find the quality of the lender itself. So talk to us a little bit of the quality of the borrower.
Quality of the borrower, there's a lot of different things that can go into it, right? What type of financing are they using? If it's FHA, they could be putting as little as 3.5% down, right? And now all of a sudden, with a little bit of a skin in the game, the banks get a little bit more nervous because if they end up having to take the property back, there's a higher likelihood that they may be underwater. So that can be a tricky loan to get through, and you have smaller down payments, the banks become more scrutinized on it, right?
Yeah.
There are, what the lending institution calls the ratios. You got a front end and a back end ratio. That's income to debt, right? And there's certain maximums that can,
within their means.
Right. There's certain maximums that the underwriters say they have to fall underneath, right? So I'm asking that loan officer, how are we doing on the ratios? Are we pushing up against it? Is there any income that the borrower is using that may get disqualified?
That's right.
Things like spousal support or child support or
tips,
things along those lines.
bonuses, right? There are any number of things. Somebody may well earn enough money to purchase the property, but the lender doesn't recognize it as applicable income for the purposes of sustaining.
Buyer-borrower can't document it, right?
That's right.
They don't have enough of a history of receiving that income where the bank says, okay, we can count on this coming in the future, so we will allow it. Right?
So an unskilled lender may say, hey, this person on paper makes $100,000. Sure, they can afford this house, but by the time they actually dig into it, the person doesn't qualify for that loan. So we need to know that the borrower is qualified, and we need to know that the lender is qualified to make that
and qualified to be able to piece this puzzle together, that the underwriters are going to say okay, and then they're going to give the green light.
And we're talking about a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
We're talking about $500,000 in Colorado for the most first-time home buyers. The lenders aren't just going to say sure, right?
Yeah.
They want to make sure that you are a reasonable risk, that the borrower is a reasonable risk. So when we're calling and speaking with the underwriter, when we're speaking with the lender, we're asking, have you received all of the documentation from the buyer so that you can verify these incomes? Have you had an underwriter take a look at this file and giving you a pre-approval? They do what they call credit approval, where they'll say, hey, if we find a suitable property, this person up to this amount, we've reviewed all these documents, we're going to give them a loan.
We're good, right? Pending an appraisal or title commitment, some minor things that can easily happen through it. But that's a great situation to be in. We get somebody that's credit approved and been through underwriting. we're like, okay, now we
Things
know
can
there's
still
not going to
go
be as
wrong,
many
but a lot
surprises.
fewer.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
absolutely. So that's good
We
stuff.
also, I ask lenders some gentle trick questions. Like I ask them, how long is it in underwriting before you get the clear to close? The numbers actually being sent to the title company. If a lender doesn't know the answer to that, I'm wondering if they're a baby lender, if they haven't been doing this long, because that's a pivotal, important part of their day-to-day business. So we do that on each and every offer we've got, right? So that we've got a really clear idea, okay, yes, this offer was written competently, so my first round is that the agent has got some competency. Then I'm going to check and see if the lender has competency and if the borrower has got veracity. I'm also going to ask the agent if they've worked with this lender before, and vice versa, the lender if they've worked with this agent. How about that borrower when I'm talking with the agent? Has your borrower been under contract on other properties before?
Right.
Have they bailed out?
What happened with that? Yeah.
Did they bail out because the seller refused to caulk the bathroom, right? Are they going to be a pain in the butt who's likely to bail on, because there's cobwebs somewhere, in which all of these things happen, and all of this sifting at the beginning of that process. We haven't even gotten to price and terms yet. We're saying, are these people valid? Are these people credible? Can they afford it? Do they have people working with them who are credible and can perform? Because the price and terms don't mean squat if somebody can't perform.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things I talk to clients, and I call it the probability of getting to the closing table.
That's right.
Just getting a great offer at a high price is well and good, and it's exciting. But if it's got a small chance of actually getting to the closing table and that borrower or the lender performing, you're going to wait 3 weeks, well, maybe 4 weeks up to some point with your house off of the market, only to find out later on, oh yeah, sorry, they can't do it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And then you're back to square one looking for a new buyer.
And then when we start looking at the terms, and this is very, very important, particularly if you're a seller in Colorado. It's interesting, having been in business between the two of us, I think we counted almost 50 years of real estate experience between the two of us. You can tell by my gray hair and by
my gray beard.
Oh, his gray beard. I was about to talk about your magnificent dome. But once we start getting to the terms of the contract itself, the contract over that 25 years, we see the contract changes and morphs depending upon market conditions. Right, and because we have been in such a sustained seller's market for many, many years, the contract that we use in Colorado, contract to buy and sell, highly favors the buyer.
Absolutely. We're caveat emptor state, right? So back to your high school Latin, that's buyer beware. And so the way that the Forms Committee and the state and the Real Estate Commission has set up our contract is it basically grants all the rights to the buyer. Buyer, you're paying them thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars for the property. You should have the right to do all your investigation, your due diligence, and figure out whether or not this property is right for you. So long as it's done within certain dates and deadlines.
That's right.
But what's a seller?
Multiple opportunities to get through it, but the seller
has zero, right? The seller cannot just outright come back and say, you know what, I've changed my mind, I'm looking to get out of this contract.
You go into contract with the buyer, unless you've written a specific contingency, otherwise you are in. You must sell that house to them. So all this front-end research we are doing on the veracity of these borrowers is very, very important. It can determine, whether or not you're going to close on time, whether or not you're going to close for the amount that was agreed on, whether or not the buyer is going to try to beat you up over inspection items. All of these things is before we even take one look at what the price is. Now, once we get to that contract itself,
sure,
right?
Lots of different ways to shift the costs.
That's right.
There's the HOA transfer fees, the status letters. The HOAs have gotten very creative in how they continue to make income above and beyond just their monthly dues, right?
Title fees. Who's paying for the title insurance? Are they paying for an extended policy? What happens if the appraisal comes in? Is there an appraisal guarantee? Are they, what happens if, is there a contingency for the buyer to sell their home? With property taxes, just, are the prorated property taxes that the seller is going to pay the buyer at closing for the portion of the year that they didn't occupy the property? They going to base those on last year's property taxes before all of us enjoyed a 40 to 60% increase, or are they going to base it on the 40 to 60% increase numbers? Every one of these things has got a consequence,
Right.
either legally or financially, to the seller, and we want to analyze so that we can explain, and then when you're picking one of these offers, you're making an informed decision.
That's it, right? I mean, that's exactly what it is. We are there to educate and consult our clients.
It's
right?
fiduciary, that's that
Put it in
fiduciary
writing.
relationship.
We're the ones who've been operating in this space for years and years, as Rox said. We are the experts in that stuff, and we should take the time to slow down, explain it to our clients, make sure they understand the terms that they're agreeing to, and that they're going to be legally bound by, and that they're comfortable with those terms.
That's right.
And all of that stuff, like Rox was saying, goes in before we even present the offer
Before
to the
we
seller.
pick up the phone and present
Right?
it to you.
And if there's multiple offers, we're doing it on each and every single one of them.
That's right, that's right. Because that's what a fiduciary is, right? A fiduciary has care and loyalty, right? Just like your financial planner does, or your attorney. That's the relationship that we behave as if.
Well, that's the relationship that we enter into legally
And
as
that
well.
we enter into
With our
legally.
exclusive right to sell contract, we want to be your agent, and we're going to sign documents to that fact and bind us to the fiduciary pieces and a lot of other stuff that's there. So
That's right, that's right.
We put our money where our mouth is on our side, and we'd love to do it for you.
So hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, ding, and please like, subscribe, comment. Let us know if you've got any questions or topics that you'd like us to explore.
See you in the next one.